Hey guys, what is up? It is SkullFlag44 here. Welcome to Hawk Ramblings Seahawks versus Raiders preseason 2013 week 4. This is my fourth Hawk Ramblings video. I've done two Seahawks games for these Hawk Ramblings sort of stuff. The first one I did after the game. The second game, or the week 3 for the Packers game, I did one before and then one after. And then for this one, I'm doing one before and after, but combining it into one video, and we'll see which one we like best at the end of the preseason. I know, kind of a cool way to do it because it's preseason for this too, and then once we get into the season, I can get a nice schedule going down and get it nice and consistent the way I like it. So right now I'm going to be recording my thoughts before the game, some things I'm going to be looking out for, and then afterward, after I watch the game, I'll record my thoughts from the game and things I thought from it, and then talk more about some of the cuts they might do and all that sort of stuff, as I'll kind of be talking about in this game. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Chris Harper. This is a guy I've talked about a lot. I was really excited when they drafted him. I thought, fourth round is a pretty good place to get a wide receiver. A lot of, fourth round is kind of like, okay, they can be a really solid player, but they have flaws, a lot of potential. A pretty solid round, probably my favorite round, actually, if you think of all the rounds. I just like how even it is. I don't know, most people don't have a favorite NFL round, but I guess I do. Third round's also solid, but then fourth rounds you get a little riskier, but you also have that same talent. I don't know, really, deep fans NFL stuff right there. Anyway, Chris Harper, he's had a lot of opportunities to show something this year, and he really hasn't, or this training camp and preseason. I guess he hasn't had too many opportunities, but he should have shown more than he has. And with the Seahawks having such a good team, him making the team is going to be really difficult. But it sounds like the Seahawks really want him to make the team as they draft him in the fourth round. They really like what he can do, and he just hasn't really done much. So apparently, in the Raiders game, they're going to really try to force feed him the ball, give him a lot of opportunities, and we'll see what he does with them. I'm excited to see what'll happen because sometimes when you give a guy a ball enough, he seems like the type of guy that just needs to be given the ball. Because with Colin Klein, Mr. Klein, C. Klein, wasn't a very good quarterback for passing, even though he was a really solid player. And maybe Chris Harper's just being used to being just throwing the ball and then doing what he does with it, and maybe that's what they'll try to do. And if he shows some potential there, he's got a good chance of making the team, and will be able to contribute later on once they kind of figure out and convert him into a regular wide receiver, because this guy was a quarterback and then converted to wide receiver in college. So that's something to kind of look at. I think they really want to make the team. The Seahawks, if they spend a fourth round draft pick, they really think he can be a solid player. And if he makes the team, he's not going to be playing much, at least early on, until there's an injury, until he improves in practice. But I think he really, I don't know if he doesn't really deserve the team, but I really like to see him make it, because I think he'll get picked up somewhere else. Some other team will stash him on their roster, and he could turn into a really solid player. But it's going to be difficult, because that means if you keep him, then someone else will have to go. And I thought maybe last game was the last chance for him to do something, but it seems like it's going to be this game because of what they've said about him, which is good to see. They haven't completely given up on him. But we'll see how that goes. Now that Stephen Williams is pretty much a lock to make the team, after all he's done. I don't know, he's done a kind of weird thing. Like, he hasn't really caught too many balls, because it's tough to do that in the preseason. But I think he has the most yards in the preseason, which is kind of cool because he runs all those deep routes. So that'll definitely be something to watch. I'm excited to see that. He hasn't really had the chance to get the ball in his hands too much, because either hasn't gotten open, or the Seahawks quarterbacks haven't seen him there. So we'll see how that goes. And then moving on to another wide receiver is Bryan Walters, who really started out strong in training camp. It looked like it was going to be him and Steve Williams competing for like the sixth man. But now it looks like it's then it turned into him and Steve Williams competing for the. Well, I guess it was never really the conversation for the fifth man, as Chris Harper kind of dropped out. But he was right there. He's a guy from Seattle. They signed him, I think, to the practice squad last year. They liked what he could do. He's a fast guy, kick returner type player. At this point, he's really doubtful to make the team, because the Seahawks have so many other players they'd rather put there. But maybe, I think he might have 1 year of eligibility left on the practice squad, and he would be nice there since he impressed early on. So he's supposed to play, so we'll see what he can do. This could be something, maybe just an audition for him to try to make some other team. Although I think he'll probably just be a practice squad guy again because he was picked up last year. Phil Bates is a really interesting case because he was a quarterback in college, switched to wide receiver last year, was on the practice squad, and then this training camp in preseason, they switched him to fullback, played there like for a snap or two. I don't know if he played too much in the Green Bay game, but then that didn't really turn into anything. So now they're playing him at wide receiver again for this game, which is kind of a mess because he doesn't really look like he's going to make the team, but maybe practice squad again. So they kind of need to figure out what they want to do with him. I mean, I think fullback would be kind of a cool idea. Maybe if he makes the practice squad, that's what they'll decide to do with him. So we'll see how that'll turn out. Ron Parker is another interesting guy. He's the guy that the Seahawks have had for a while. Got picked up by a couple other teams, came back when he got cut. He's been injured a lot. Apparently, he's supposed to be one of the fastest players on the team. I don't know, when I look at him, he doesn't seem very fast. But apparently, he's a big, strong guy. It would be really doubtful for him to make the team, but maybe could be traded if he has a good performance this game. Ty Powell is a really interesting guy. This guy seems like the perfect practice squad type player. He was, a late round pick. Was supposed to be, everyone thought, oh, this will be the surprise guy that, but turned into a nice Leo pass rusher for the Seahawks, which has turned into Benson Mayowa. But he hasn't done too much. It's been kind of hard, it's kind of hard to impress when you're in that sort of situation, coming from a small town school. But he's an ideal practice squad guy because he has that potential right fit for the Seahawks there. So, and I don't think he's been good enough to get picked up by other teams. Although we could see, some of these guys the Seahawks favor a lot. Maybe other teams just decide to pick him up because they know how good the Seahawks are at picking these players. So I don't know. The practice squad thing's gonna be really interesting. I believe if you're curious to when these guys will get cut, I think it's Saturday 3 p.m. Pacific and then Sunday 9 a.m. Saturday 3 p.m. Pacific is when they have to have their cuts in, so it'll be probably a little earlier than that. And then Sunday 9 a.m. Pacific is when they'll be able to sign practice squad guys. So that'll be pretty interesting to watch for sure. Let's see. Jay Howard, he's another guy to watch. He's been decent this preseason with all the troubles the Seahawks have had at the defensive line. Not really troubles, but just kind of injuries and all sorts of different stuff. Like Cliff Averill might not be available for the opener. Chris Clemens, what are they going to do with him? Are they going to keep him on the roster? Or are they going to put him on the physically unable to perform list? Have him out for a while? I don't know. They've got a lot of decisions to make, and it'll be really interesting to see what they do. Might do a whole Hawk ramblings on all their decisions, just kind of talking about that because that could be kind of interesting. I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversation about whether they made the right decisions on a lot of players, and apparently there could be some surprise cuts for some cap space reasons. The Seahawks are fine in cap space wise, but if they want to have a luxury of being able to spend more next season as well, they want to be able to roll over some of the money so they can keep spending that same amount of money so they don't screw themselves over next year. So they might be a couple guys. Bruno Giacomini is the guy that came up, could be a surprise cut because of Bowie and Bailey are kind of impressed there. And then maybe you get Carpenter back and you switch Paul McQuiston over. I don't know. A lot of interesting stuff on the offensive line. I didn't put any offensive line stuff in this because it's kind of hard for me to watch the offensive line because it's just like at least I naturally look at more of the skill positions, and I don't know, kind of hard for me to judge. It's more the like, oh, I didn't notice you did a bad job, or wow, that was a great run, I noticed you. It's like sometimes you notice the bad plays and the good plays, and so if they're kind of decent, then it's kind of good enough. So it's not, I don't know, I'm not hardcore enough yet to be all offensive line into that, although I can sort of recognize it. So Jay Howard, should be interesting to see what happens to him. I'll be excited to watch him. Tony McDaniel stepped up big time last week. Just looks like a big, nasty player. I would really love to see him step up again. And they'll have a hard time cutting him as well because of their defensive line. Kind of Michael Bennett's kind of injured. All sorts of different problems. I'm just really curious to see how this all plays out because it's going to be really, really difficult. Mike Morgan, I don't really see a spot for him on the team, but if he has a good game, then things will get more interesting. There's a couple guys that people kind of assume are going to be on the team, like that don't follow the Seahawks a lot. Mike Morgan's kind of one of them. Other people that that, I'll get to some other players that people think are going to get cut as well, but seem like they're going to make the team. I don't know. Mike Morgan, I don't really know too much about Mike Morgan. I just know him and Alan Bradford are similar, and I like Alan Bradford so much more because he has so much more potential. Former running back. I like the guys that have been converted over because they show me, okay, that guy could turn into a solid player, huge hitter. I don't know. Bradford's the type of guy I could see becoming a starter one day, and that's the type of potential I like to have in my backups. A really solid special teams player. Mike Morgan, I just don't know if there's a spot for him on the team. Benson Mayowa, Idaho guy, just looks like a really solid player and could develop into a really nice player. Has really been an impact player for the last 3 games. Recorded like 2.5 sacks the first games. Recorded, got some pressures in the Packers game. Got a fumble recovery. Just one of those guys that are just picking up the, just kind of doing the little things and, has a knack for doing that sort of stuff, which is interesting because I don't think he really had a knack for it at Idaho, recording only 3 sacks there, which just seems ridiculous that he can only get 3 sacks, against the teams Idaho's playing, which is like North Texas and stuff like that. He got 2 sacks against LSU, so I guess he's just one of the guys that plays better against better competition, which really makes no sense. I don't know. It's one of those things like, wow, if you can go back and follow this guy, it's like it doesn't all add up for how good he's been in the preseason. Another solid performance would make it nearly impossible for him to be off the team, but there's going to be some interesting cuts here because there's too many players. There's going to be some guys that are going to be surprised, to be on the team, for sure. And so whether what he does will be pretty interesting, especially with Chris Clemens stuff. What they do with him, because if Chris Clemens stays on the roster, that means one less guy, and maybe a guy like Benson Mayowa doesn't make the team. Although it's just gonna be really tough, managing all these spots. Let's see, John Lotulelei. He has huge potential, super fast, smaller guy, but can do a lot. The Seahawks paid a lot of money in the undrafted free agency for him. Not a lot of money, they paid him like $25,000 and then a signing bonus, which isn't a lot of money for the Seahawks. But when you look at undrafted players, it's a lot of money. But he had a bonehead play last week where he just had just a late hit, which you kind of saw was stupid. It was one of those things like you might get away with it in the regular season because it's preseason, it's not going to happen. And you can't blame him too much, but that was kind of a knock on him there. I don't know. I would hate to see him off the team because he's has a lot of potential there, but kind of needs another solid performance because of all the depth the Seahawks have. You really want to make it extremely difficult for the Seahawks to get rid of you. So then there's 3 guys at safety: Deshaun Shedd, Chris Maragos, and Winston Guy, that are really fighting for one spot, it looks like. And it seems like only one guy, LOL, will be able to come out on top, or one person, which is actually another Seahawks player, or one male. That sounds weird. I don't even know of one player. How about that? That works out pretty well. Seems like only one player will be able to come out on top. And each player brings something different to the table. Their performance in this game might be a tiebreaker. I think the Seahawks kind of have a pretty good idea of who they're going to keep and who they're going to cut. But when you do some crazy stuff, it's hard for people to cut you. And Jerron Johnson has kind of made himself turned into a solid player on the Seahawks team, and just kind of been a guy they couldn't really get rid of because coming as an undrafted free agent out of Boise State, made a lot of plays in the preseason, kind of like a Benson Mayowa type of guy. They ended up keeping him, and then has turned into just a really solid player on the team and grown a lot there. I think he's kind of solid because of they don't have too much safety depth. I like Deshaun Shedd a lot. He is kind of like that versatility, with becoming kind of like a cornerback and safety mixed type of guy, even like a linebacker, kind of just a weird body type, good athlete. He had an interception, looks pretty good. Chris Maragos is kind of like your safe pick. He's the white guy. He does things right, but solid special teams player, but only has so much potential. And Winston Guy is your big risk, big reward. He got in trouble for PEDs last year, but he has a lot of potential. He's the guy most likely to be a starting player down the road, but also could very easily be, a bust, a year from now, or a couple years from now. So that's a really interesting decision and what they decided to do there. Maybe, some of the money comes into the play there. I think Shedd is the cheapest, and Maragos is the most expensive just because how long they've been in the league, but I'm not positive on that. So then going off back to the defensive line, Silver Salinga, or whatever, I don't even know how to say it. I'm not even going to learn how to say it until he makes the team. But this is a guy from the John Moffitt trade from Denver. And the Seahawks obviously saw something in him if they were willing, to trade for him. It seems like they could have got, a 7th-round pick if they really wanted it. Or maybe not. But it'll be interesting to see if they think he's worth the spot because they decided to trade for him. That tells us, okay, he's obviously something in their mind. And he looked pretty solid last week, a big run stopper type guy. I don't know if he's, good enough, but with all the injuries like I've said again and again, Meebane's kind of injured. I don't know, could be a guy that sneaks on a team. It's just like there's so many guys that are just like, okay, if they make the team, it's like, oh, that's fine. But then there's tons of guys, if you have them off the team, it's like, oh, that's kind of a pain. There's gonna be lots of guys that are gonna miss the team, and I think we're gonna be disappointed at. But we're not probably won't be disappointed at who makes the team. It's kind of a weird situation. The Seahawks have said before that they want to have like the best practice squad in all of the NFL, which is kind of difficult when you think about it because you can build a really solid team once you have to cut it down that any team can take from those players. But it's more likely that these guys that get cut here are going to go on the Seahawks practice squad because they know the system, and it's hard trying to you have to really like a guy to bring him onto your 53-man roster. But I'm sure a couple guys will go there, and you won't you'll just have some developmental guys on the practice squad. I don't know, the practice squads are going to be really interesting to me, and who gets signed there. So then going into the two fullback / running back guys, Derek Coleman and Spencer Ware. So Derek Coleman is a solid player. He has apparently some ear issues or something like that. He has a hard time hearing. He had to work through that, which is kind of cool. I'd be absolutely shocked if he made the team over Spencer Ware because I think Spencer Ware has, he has a lot more versatility. He has some wiggle. He has, a running back type, player that they've tried to do some fullback stuff with. Big hard hitter. Might be picked up if you try to cut him and try to sign a practice squad. He has some really nice potential, but the backfield might be too full for him. Michael Robinson is another guy that they've kind of they've said they're going to keep him on the team, but he's had this weird sickness sort of stuff, and he might be out for a couple weeks. So it's like, well, could you just cut him then? I don't know. They've got some really interesting decisions to make because going without a fullback for the first couple of games would be kind of something. So maybe some of these guys, will show something on special teams and prove they're a player there. I don't know. Derek Coleman is the more fullback type player, but I don't know. He doesn't have as much potential to me, but a really solid practice squad guy. If someone were to go down, you could just call him up. And Spencer Ware, I don't know. He's a guy I want to make the team, but it's like, is there a spot for him? I don't know. Usually when you're trying to find a spot, I find just if you take one from the offensive line, like some people have the offensive line at 10, other people at 9. Offensive line, I think, is just easier to take from because it's a lot harder to judge who's really solid, at least in the backups. Some people had Derek Coleman in over Spencer Ware on the roster, and I don't know. It's like I can't see that happening, but who knows? It'll be interesting to see when this happens, and whether my predictions hold true or not. And then there's some of the tight ends like Zach Miller's going to play in the game, which should be kind of interesting to watch. And then his backup is Luke Wilson, and then Sean McGrath after that. Sean McGrath I didn't really like last year. I just didn't see what he could offer, but then he grew the beard, and all of a sudden I'm all in on him. I really like what he can do, and it's a really solid backup and could grow into just a decent player for the team. And then Cooper Helfett out of Duke is kind of a fringe player. And then you have Darren Fells, and I don't know, there's got a lot of guys the Seahawks haven't cut yet. Obviously they've cut guys like Will Blackman, who I thought was much better player. It's just gonna be really interesting. We'll have to see how it goes. So I'll come back when I finish watching the Seahawks game, and then we'll tell you my thoughts there. And then I'll probably end up doing a video on another Hawk Ramblings on the Seahawks cuts, talking about what I like, what I don't like, and some of the stuff like that. Or maybe the practice squad guys too. I'd assume I'd group all that together. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and I will see you guys next time when I'm done watching the game. Okay. All right, hey guys, what is up? I am back once again on the same video I realized, but I just got done watching the game, and I thought, as I mentioned before, I'm going to go ahead and give you my thoughts. And I thought, hey, I'll just go through the same players as I did before and just tell you what I thought of how they did in the game. But first, I'm going to kind of give a recap of the game. So the Seahawks started out really nicely. For the very first bit, that wasn't very nice, but then Russell Wilson had a nice pass to Stephen Williams that was underthrown a little bit, but one of those where you'd rather have it underthrown a little bit because if you overthrow him, you miss a big play. But if you underthrow him, you give him a chance to make a play on the ball. And Steven Williams is the type of guy that it's either he's going to get it or no one is, most likely. And it's worth taking a chance there. Obviously, maybe would have liked to see him in stride a little more, but that's something you can live with, especially when Russell Wilson's still trying to learn his speed and all that. So that moved him down the field, and then the Seahawks just kind of marched up the field, nice little passes, and Robert Turbin ran it in for a touchdown. And then it was just field goals. I think there was just 7 field goals after that. 22-6 was the game, just kind of one of those. It was the most boring game for sure out of the preseason games. One, it's the Raiders, and 2, it's the 4th preseason game, which is the most boring because it matters the least. Lots of guys still trying to make the team, but I think for the most part they kind of have their minds made up. Definitely some little stuff, but I don't know, only kind of spot cases, because you got the first game, obviously first game of the preseason, first game in a while. Everyone is enjoying that. You see something. Second game, the starters play a little more, steal a little more. Still trying to figure out who's playing. Third game, the starters playing to the third quarter. That's exciting. And then fourth game, it just scales back, and that's kind of a tough thing. But next week will be super awesome because the Seahawks will be playing the Panthers, and that'll be really exciting. But there was still stuff to learn from the game, and I watched the entirety and recorded it. So I'm uploading that right now for myself later on. So Chris Harper, this is the big guy going into it. Everyone wanted to see what he could do. Got lots of opportunities this game, and he kind of disappointed. He got a nice catch early on, which is all right, that was something. That's what he's supposed to do. And then he had one in the end zone that could have been thrown better, but it was just a drop. You're not going to get perfect perfect scenarios in the NFL, and you're gonna have to make do with what you got and show that you can take advantage of things that aren't perfect, because you can't. Catching a perfect ball isn't what they want to see. They want to see you catch something, make a play out of something that wasn't perfect, because that's not how you're going to get it in a game. That's not how it was. Could have been a better thrown ball, but it was in the end zone, had a chance to get it, had some people bearing down on him, but he needed to catch it. The ball wasn't even broken up or anything. Should have caught it even if it was broken up, but he was just kind of sitting there, kind of falling back, kind of an awkward situation, and couldn't come up with it. And then another one where he got broke free from a cornerback, and then just kind of the ball kicked, just kind of crept up on him, and hit him in one spot that he wasn't ready to catch it for, which why that happens, or why he wasn't ready to catch it there, I don't know, but just didn't drop that one too. And it was oh man, he's if he had made those plays, he really could have made a serious consideration for being on the team. And there's still a chance he could be on the team. Lots of people have different opinions about what they think of him, and we don't really know what John Schneider and Pete Carroll think of these guys. We're just kind of making our best guesses by them, and then once the cut day comes, we'll kind of get to see what what actually happens. So, but I don't know if he makes the team. He showed some stuff there, but he didn't really capitalize on everything. He was really close. Could have really stepped up. Steven Williams went down with a concussion, which is a big deal this game. But hopefully it didn't look awful. He came back on the field or on the sideline, in his pads and everything. So hopefully it was just precautionary, and he'll be good to go for the season opener. He's got 10 days for that to kind of even out, and I think hopefully he'll be fine. Kind of would be a rough situation if he wasn't fine. He would probably have to carry 6 wide receivers if he was going to be out the first game, because that'd be kind of a tricky situation. I guess you wouldn't necessarily have to, but they've got a lot of things to figure out. But yeah, really interesting situation. It's I don't think this really changed opinions on too many people, because there's people that think, oh yeah, he's going to make the team because they'll give the 4th rounder a chance. One bad preseason won't cast him out forever, and other people that think you really need to step up, you're going to be gone. And I think both sides aren't really changed too much, so we'll see what side the Seahawks fall on. I think they can go either way, and if whatever way they go, I'll understand it and won't be too disappointed, because this roster is so talented. Bryan Walters, he's a guy that impressed early on, got injured, a hometown guy, played for a high school around here. Solid player, kind of would be that 7th wide receiver, I would say. Showed some stuff. He had one kick or one punt return that he just kind of got tripped up, and then ended up fumbling the ball, but it was recovered, so that didn't do too much for him. Had a nice catch in traffic, but wasn't much there. I don't know. He looks pretty talented, kind of like Charlie Martin from last year, but just a little faster and quicker, and probably better, I would say, overall. But at this point, he's just not really not really, and going to do it for the Seahawks with the talent they have. If they do decide to add a sixth wide receiver, it's going to be Chris Harper because, even though he didn't make the catches, he still showed some stuff, and he's going to catch those balls most of the time. Phil Bates, didn't really see much of him at all. He kind of has the same. I was looking at him, kind of have the same body type as Chris Harper, but Chris Harper is more talented. So not too much there. Ron Parker, he had a couple of plays, a couple of nice hits. He had one play where the quarterback was getting pressured, got hit, the ball was kind of lofted up, and he could have gone up and tried to make a play on the ball, but he went kind of just, I don't know what he was doing, trying to go for the tackle, but he didn't even go for the hit. It's like he had to pick big hit or interception there, as the starting guys in the secondary know how to do, and he didn't really come up there. So kind of a missed opportunity for him. Wasn't too impressive. Ty Powell, he was a guy that looked really good today. He had a couple, I think he might have had a sack or a couple nice pressures, looked solid. Not good enough to make the team, I think, because of the talent, the all-around talent and the need they have at other positions. But definitely, I'd love to see him on the practice squad. That could be really solid, and a guy that could come in, maybe that they could develop more for what they like to see. Has got the talent there. Jay Howard looked awesome, probably one of the best guys this game. He just looked. They were playing him on the end instead of defensive tackle, so kind of that having that hybrid, having that pressure, capability and all capabilities of the defensive line was really nice, and I love to see that. He got some nice pressures, was able to move around a lot, and looked good. Looked like just a really solid lineman that's getting better as he works with Dan Quinn again some more. Definitely like what I saw there. Tony McDaniel didn't play. I'm pretty sure with the troubles they have on the defensive line with all the injuries and stuff, I think he'll be good to make the team. So nothing, didn't really need to see too much out of him, as I realized later. Mike Morgan, a couple nice plays. I don't really just a solid player, but I don't know what really sets him apart from other guys. He just kind of does everything decent and not really next level. But I mean, if they were to keep him on the team, I wouldn't be like, oh, this is such a waste of a spot, because he can do some things, but I just wouldn't be my preference. They list him as defensive end, but he can also play all three linebacker positions apparently. So the whole defensive end linebacker thing is really blurred, and the Seahawks defense is really, changing a lot of blurred lines of some sort. So that's something to look out for, because they play like they're like a 4-3 team, but they play like a 3-4 sometimes. It's just a whole weird mess, but that's good. You want something changed up. You don't want to be confined to a system that doesn't really, there's no reason for that system to necessarily exist. Let's see, Benson Mayowa, definitely another solid night for him. Didn't show up early on like I was necessarily hoping, or I was hoping he would, but he did show up later on and got a nice sack / forced fumble, which is what he does, just stepping up all sorts of in all sorts of ways, and doing just finding a way to impact the game, which is what you really like to see. I'd be really surprised if he didn't make the team, and really disappointed if he didn't make the team, because I think he'd be losing out on some talent there that some other team would find and keep, and some maybe even like Jacksonville, who's signed Kyle Knox and signed Will Blackman, and this isn't even a guy that they've or Gus Bradley has had experience with, but is in kind of the same sort of system that Gus Bradley's trying to create, and has that talent that in maybe in a better situation for him to grow, because he'll there's not as many good players on that team. I don't know, but would really be disappointed if he were to be off the team. John Lotulelei, Lotulelei, I believe it is, but Lotulelei sounds a little better personally. Lotulelei, and there's a way to say it like Star Lotulelei, or Star Lotulelei. Lotulelei sounds better. Like I just said. Anyway, he looked pretty nice. Had a couple nice special teams plays. Really flies around there. Nothing too crazy. I would again be disappointed if he didn't make the team, but not a huge. I would say less than it was before. Like early on, I was like, because he looked good in training camp. I was like, oh man, hope he makes the team. But now it's like, I'd much rather have Benson Mayowa make the team, I think. But both guys, I think, should make it. And there's how many? I don't know if they have enough spots for all the guys that should, or they definitely don't have enough spots for all the guys that should. So we'll see how that all shakes out. I don't know. Looked kind of decent. Alan Bradford, who's a guy I didn't have on here, but he looked really good. Again, just a big hard hitter type of guy. I'm excited to see him playing special teams capabilities, and I think Malcolm Smith could be, I don't know, kind of. The linebackers positions I don't really completely understand. Like, people say, oh, he can play all three linebacker positions. He specializes in this one. I just kind of look at it as linebacker generally, and I think that's kind of more how this, not necessarily how the Seahawks do completely, but that's you need to balance both sides, because I think the Seahawks are going to put the best three linebackers in there and figure out a spot for him. Because you got Bruce Irvin, who's playing a linebacker position. He'll be playing linebacker, technically, but even if there's three linebackers in already, which is kind of the 4-3, 3-4 blend sort of situation. But that's something that he could be taken out, because I don't know, last year Leroy Hill was in here, and then when he got hurt, I liked Malcolm Smith in there more than Leroy Hill, because he had a little more potential, was a little faster, liked what he brought to the table. But he's a 7th round pick, has potential, but not the amount of potential that a guy like Bradford or Lotulelei has, I think, which is kind of surprising, because I think Bradford, I don't know if he was undrafted or late rounder. I know Lotulelei was undrafted. But I just like, I like guys that have more potential in general, and are have a maybe lower ceiling, but have that ability to be a really solid player, which leads into a guy like Deshaun Shedd, who is that sort of same mold. He had a pretty good game, had some couple nice plays, couple missed opportunities, but decent. Chris Maragos had a sack, looked pretty good, just kind of guy that's out there, lots of effort, fighting for his job. Looked decent. I don't know, all these there's a lot of guys like like a Heath Farwell, who I think probably should get cut, in my opinion, because they say, oh, he's so good, so valuable on special teams. Special teams coaches love him, and to be honest, I don't see the problem in the Seahawks special teams. Like, they just have, if you have so many good athletes, what they do, and if you cut a guy like Heath Farwell, you're going to be putting a guy that's most likely a better athlete that can learn that position, as a special team sort of guy. But they have so many good athletes. When you put so many good athletes on special teams, you get a good result. Like, it's not like a big position. People say, oh, Chris Maragos, special teams guy, special teams. It's like, special teams is a bonus, but special teams is not what you should be relying on, especially when you have a roster that's this packed, which is why Chris Maragos might go, or Heath Farwell might go. Winston Guy looked pretty good, had some couple nice plays, but Winston Guy, man, this guy, will just celebrate after every play, and he's trying to fit in so badly with the Legion of Boom and act like he belongs there, and the way they act, the way they play, because he did play in some special packages last year. They really liked him, which is why I think they might keep him. But he was just, acting like he was almost too good, arrogant. He was too good for the, playing from where he was, and it was like, well, dude, you still got to, fight for what you do. Like, Richard Sherman, he talks a lot and does all that sort of stuff, but he's earned that position. You got to kind of build up there. So it was one of those things, like, I don't know, he's almost trying to fake his way into it, and it's kind of a weird situation. But I don't know, he looked decent, but that was kind of a knock on him. I don't know. Those are three guys that, who knows what'll happen. Derek Coleman, I'll earlier this video I said he'd be shocked if he make the team. I am much less down on him now. I'm a lot higher on him. I think I'd be mildly surprised. Like, I don't know. I was like, oh, Derek Coleman. How can people have Derek Coleman making the team? That seems ridiculous. But with Michael Robinson's injury, maybe you cut him. Who knows how long he's out? That's a big X factor. I think if Michael Robinson was good full go, it'd be, Derek Coleman would be a lot further down. But Spencer Ware, I was hoping that he would have an opportunity to play more fullback and show himself there, but he seems more like a running back, maybe fullback, hybrid. But if you don't have a fullback to step up, you might need a guy like Derek Coleman. But hopefully Michael Robinson is good to go, and you won't need Derek Coleman, at least at first. But having a guy that's kind of a hybrid running back fullback is pretty good. But I don't know, Derek Coleman, definitely not as good of a blocker as Michael Robinson. I don't know, but he looked solid, looked decent. Going to Spencer Ware, who had a couple of drops, which is kind of disappointing. Didn't look nearly as good. I said before I'd be, disappointed if they cut him, but now I think maybe they could cut him and sign him to practice squad, because I don't know if he's worth a roster spot on any team. I don't know. That's gonna be another interesting spot, but I'm lower on him than I was before. Silver Salinga didn't really show up too much. Maybe one of those guys that could make it just off of pure necessity there. And then I don't know, they're gonna have an interesting decision on Clemens, who will take up a practice or a roster spot if they decide to put him on, and Bruce Irvin. Once Bruce Irvin comes back, that'll be a big deal because Bruce Irvin looked pretty good out there today, but he's going to be gone for 4 games. So while that is a negative, it's like, oh, you'd much rather have Bruce Irvin, but it does give a guy like Benson Mayowa a chance to show what he has. And who knows, maybe Benson Mayowa will impress early on. And when he comes back, it'll be someone else that goes. But I would imagine Benson Mayowa won't be active at first because there is 7 guys that aren't active, and that's kind of a tough position for someone to step into immediately. But we'll see. How much injuries they have will definitely play a big factor, and obviously if Chris Clemens is on the roster and not there. This is assuming Mayo is on the team, but he could be off it, which would be a big blow, but not completely out of the question. Then going to the running game, Marshawn Lynch didn't play. He was hanging out with Snoop Dogg, which good for him. Snoop Lion was there, just kind of chilling. I'm not too concerned about him. I don't know. The running game kind of needs a while to get going. Then once it gets going, it's good. But sometimes the running game can be pretty slow. And the Seahawks run the ball. They pride themselves running the ball, but it's solid, but it's not as good as it could be. I'd like to see a little more consistency out of it overall, and you definitely saw that today, where there was just not many holes, a lot of negative yards happening, which is kind of disappointing to see. Nothing really too impressive from Christian Michael or Robert Turman, except for Christian Michael had one play on a screen, which he just kind of sped up the sideline, which you kind of just see happening because once you give this guy open space, he really capitalized on it. I don't know. Robert Turman, when he's running, on a screenplay, reminds me more of a tight end who's just kind of getting out there, kind of in the flat, and tries to, kind of. You hear like, okay, let's see how far he can get before he gets hit or something like that. Or Christian Michael, it's like, whoa, this guy could take it to the house, sort of deal. I don't know, kind of just two different mindsets there. Michael Bowie, a 7th round guy, I think out of Oklahoma, or out of some weird college, but went to Oklahoma State, I believe, at some point. He got his shoulder hurt, and he was a guy that looked like he was going to make the team. So hopefully that's not too serious. He was doubtful to return and not completely out. So that's somewhat of a good sign. I don't think he did return because it wouldn't make sense for him to return, in a preseason game when it's not that big of a deal. I guess if he returned, it'd be a really good sign because he'd be pretty much fine. But I don't know. He's someone interesting to look at. If it's out for 2 games, maybe you look at keeping another guy instead, and start trying to sign him to the practice squad. Who knows? That's going to be a really interesting decision there, and how bad these injuries are for guys like Steven Williams and Michael Bowie. You're thankful it's not one of the starters, but it's even tougher when it's one of the backup types guys, because it's like, well, what do you do with that? Is he really worth it? If he's going to be out for a couple games, hopefully not. But yeah, it was an interesting game. College football got going as well, so that was kind of cool. Maybe I'm trying to think. I want to do a roster prediction or a roster talk about who gets cut and who gets on. Maybe I'll do a roster. Maybe I'll do a combination video like this one. I was trying to think maybe doing two different videos, which would make sense. But it might be kind of cool to see. I like seeing the predictions and then the afters. And that would probably make more sense for video wise, because it'd be 2 videos that I don't know. I'll mess around with it. But that's something I like to do because who these guys signed to the practice squad and roster is gonna be really interesting. Or maybe 3 separate videos, maybe 3 in 1, maybe 1 and 2, and who knows how it'll all work out. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this Hawk rambling. Seahawks versus Raiders preseason 2013 week number 4. Next week it'll be Hawk rambling Seahawks versus Panthers. Preseason 2000, or not preseason, just 2013 week 1. So that'll be pretty exciting. I'm pumped for that. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.